everybody? This is Corey Lee's Boxing, and we are back with another banger. So please smash that like button, you guys, and subscribe. And yeah, man, we're gonna talk all boxing, man. What a weekend of boxing, man. If you guys were under a rock somewhere and you ain't keeping up with the sport, you know, Virgil Ortiz versus Erickson Lubin was going down last night, and you know it was pretty much a one sided fight. To be honest with you, it was a one sided fight. Smash that like button and subscribe, you guys. As soon as you guys come in, smash that like button and definitely subscribe. But yeah, man, it was a one sided fight. It was a fight that I thought that could have been competitive. Virgil Ortiz knocked out Erickson Lubin within the second round, you guys. And so it pretty much was a really, really quick fight. Both guys, came into the fight, they wanted it, assert their game plan. But only one game plan prevailed, and that was Victor Ortiz. That was Virgil Ortiz. So I just feel like right now, man, in this, with these two big names, going up against each other in the future, and what I'm talking about is Jerron Boots Ennis versus Virgil Ortiz. I'm gonna be honest with you guys right now. I truly think right now that Virgil Ortiz, yes, he's doing well, but he's not going to be the favorite in that fight. And a couple reasons is because some people say he gets hit too much, and some people would say that he would be a slower fighter, as opposed to a real quick and sudden Jerron Boots Ennis. But it's a tough fight no matter how you put it. I just know both guys tonight, they did well. Last night. They did well. And what I mean is by that is they both came to the ring. It was, it was some of those punches that was trying to get through, from Virgil Ortiz. He was trying to get through, and Erickson Lubin, he had a tight guard, and he had a real tight guard, and so he was trying to go over his guard, around his guard, and he wound up catching them with one or two temple shots, man, and that pretty much was buckling him, and after that Erickson Lubin wasn't the same. It wasn't too far after that. After Virgil Ortiz broke Erickson Lubin's guard, it wasn't too long after that that the fight got stopped. And respectfully so. We've seen some early stoppages, and we've also seen some later stoppages. I think that this stoppage was good, just because Erickson Lubin has already got hit like that before, and he didn't take it well against Charlo, and Fundora stopped him as well, but some would say, hey, that was more of a step in, somebody stepped in and stopped it, but because Erickson Lubin wanted to keep going, even though his face looked crazy in that Fundora fight. He wanted to keep going. And that's a warrior's mentality. That's a mentality that I respect. But you definitely want to live this to fight another day. And so I'm glad his coaches did that, because his eye was looking very, very swollen. And he had a lot of, head damage, almost affecting his nose. It was, his head was so swollen, like all of this was swollen. So, I'm gonna be honest, man. I think right now, I think right now, you know, Erickson Lubin needs to take a break out for boxing, for about 6 months at least. Um, and see what he wants to do moving forward. Can Erickson Lubin still win a world title? I think he can. I actually think he can. Do I think he can win a world title? And that's why I said, both guys did well because, obviously, you know, Erickson Lubin got, he got ran through pretty much, pause. But he got, he got punished. So at the end of the day, he did come on weight. He was a professional, and he did well in that aspect as being a professional and coming to the ring. But as far as his performance and stuff like that, doing well, I don't think he did well at all. Just because, why were you laying on the ropes? Why were you so? You were so, you had so much confidence in yourself and your defense that you were laying on the ropes and letting him pick you apart. And all it takes is one shot, especially at 154 pounds. And especially at 154 pounds. So I'm gonna be honest with you guys, man. Erickson Lubin definitely I'm just saying he needs to take, like I said, take 6 months off and see what you can do after that. Take 6 months off, see how you feeling after that, and then you can go from there. But as far as Virgil Ortiz goes, I think he should fight Ennis next, straight up. I think he should fight Ennis next. I think that should be the next fight. But the way Oscar De La Hoya, or no, excuse me, somebody from Virgil Ortiz's camp or something like that was saying, they like the Earl Spence fight, and Earl Spence was, randomly in attendance. I mean, take it. The fight was in Texas. I mean, but he was in attendance, and that's a fight that could possibly happen next though. Virgil Ortiz versus Earl Spence Jr. That fight could happen next. I could see that fight happening. But I want to see Virgil Ortiz win a belt first. I want to see him win a belt, man. So I want to see Virgil Ortiz win a belt. I want to see him, actually get in there and, fight for a world title and then fight, the top guys. I mean, he can fight in this now. Because, but I would like to see, or should I, let me emphasize what I mean, and let me, break down what I mean. I want to see Ennis versus Ortiz fight for all of the marbles. All 4 sanctioned and body belts. So the IBF, the WBC, the WBO, and the WBA. So I want to see him fight for all 4 major sanctioning belts. And I just feel like right now, the way that they're moving his career, Virgil Ortiz it's gonna be tough to do that. It's gonna be tough to do that. But I want to see. I definitely want to see what he can do in the ring with a real champion and a current champion. And I think Virgil Ortiz can do well. I think if he fights, I think right now if he fights, if Virgil Ortiz fights, any of the top guys at welterweight, which there's a lot of guys, there's a lot of guys. So, but the number one fight that everybody wants to see is the Ennis fight, man. I mean, let's just be honest. Let's call it what it is. Let's call it what it is. You know, everybody wants to see Virgil Ortiz versus Jerron Boots Ennis. I mean, I know that's what I want to see. If I'm going to pay my hard-earned money and my hard-earned dollars, I want to see, you know, the best fight the best. And I think that that's what it's about, man. I think that that's what it's about. Behold in the chat, salute. He says, ice season. Uh, Theo, what's up, man? He says, salute. And Maria says, hi, Corey. What's up, man? What's going on? So, yeah, man. I just feel like right now, you know, it's a really good time for Virgil Ortiz to weigh his options. I would love to see him fight Jerron Boots Ennis. You know, but if that fight doesn't happen, you know, there's other fights out there I feel like that can truly happen. Smash that like button as soon as you guys come in. Yeah, Maria in the chat says Virgil Ortiz versus Jerron Boots Ennis will be an awesome fight. Definitely, man. Definitely. I think it'll be an awesome fight as well. Just for the simple fact, both fighters are at the top of their game and they're in their prime. You know, I think that Jerron Boots Ennis is definitely, you know, in his prime, if not really, really close to it. And I think Virgil Ortiz is definitely in his prime. You know, he's fought guys, beat top guys, and I think the next best thing for Virgil Ortiz to do is win a world title. You know, I still can't believe Virgil Ortiz is not a world champion. You know, but it happens. You know, it happens in the sport of boxing all the time. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, we do want to see the best fight the best. So, you know, I think, you know, at these weight classes, they got weight classes for a reason. They got 147, 154, you know, and 160. And guys from 147 go to 154, and guys from 154 go to 160. We've seen that, you know. We don't see a lot of guys go back down once they go back up. But you got Barham Martazelli, excuse me if I'm butchering his name. But you know, he's the IBF champion. You got Jerron Boots Ennis, and Abbas Brojas is the interim champion at for the WBA. And then you got Sebastian Fundora, excuse me. It's saying Jerron Boots Ennis is the interim champion. Okay, for the WBA. So he's not even the full champion. So they're saying a base is the full champion. Wow. I did not know that. And it's saying Virgil Ortiz is the interim champion for the WBC, and then Sebastian Fundora is the WBC champion. And then you got WBO, you got Xander Zayas. So you got him, you know, really good as well, you know, with the WBO. But we don't know what's going on with the ESPN, Top Rank Boxing. You know, Top Rank right now does not have a does not have a network. You know, I'm hearing that they might have inked the deal, but I haven't heard, you know, too much on it, you know, lately. When you Google it, it does come up that they did sign with an app for 11 fights, I believe. But like I said, I wanted to see, you know, I want to see the dates. I want to see the fights. I want to see this actually come into fruition. You know what I'm saying? So I want to see this happen. You know. Let's see what we got here. Okay, it says, and the company has since signed a new smaller cable deal with Stars and is also releasing content on the free ad-supported streaming service Tubi through a new channel called Top Rank Classics. Okay, so they're saying that, you know, the previous 7-year deal with ESPN was a landmark agreement, okay, valued at around 80 million per year, but the new Stars deal is significantly smaller, valued at $77 million over an undisclosed term for the 11 shows annually. So yeah, man, salute. So what's going on, Greeny? What's going on? He said, "Damn, bro, been a minute." Yeah, man, it's been a minute, man. It's been a minute. It's been a long season for me, man. You know, just wrapping up. You know, you know, one of my other businesses I run, so it's wild. Theo says, "How you feel about Ortiz versus Kid Austin if he move up weight?" I mean, I don't know right now, 3D. I don't think Kid Austin's ready for Ortiz, man. I'm gonna be honest. I mean, yeah, he did, you know, beat Tevin Farmar, you know, which I give him a whole lot of credit for. I think he, you know, showed waves of, you know, he showed waves of talent and, you know, waves of improvement with that quick knockout. He knows how to, you know, come in and go in for the, you know, for the kill. You know, so I mean, but right now, you gotta think, man, it's a lot of, you know, fighters out here, especially at those lower weight divisions. You see what I'm saying? So I think right now, Tevin Farmar, he might retire. I'm pretty sure he'll probably fight again. But the way he got dismantled by Kid Austin, I think that that was a wild fight. And I think right now, Kid Austin needs to, you know, up it before, I think a little bit more before he jumps into the deep end with Virgil Ortiz. We know Virgil Ortiz is ready. So to answer your question, how do I feel about it? I think if it does happen, I think Virgil Ortiz will run through that kid, specifically the kid, not his dad. Even though his dad be talking, man, I ain't gonna lie, his dad be talking, man. His dad be saying, you know, be turned up. So, but as far as Kid Austin goes, no, he's not ready for Virgil Ortiz, and I think Virgil Ortiz could possibly end Kid Austin in probably 6 rounds or less right now if they were to fight next. And that's a good question because they're both signed to Golden Boy. So that's actually a pretty good question. Yeah, that's a really good question because both guys are signed to Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy, and we've seen wilder things happen. You know, we've seen wilder things happen. So listen, man. So yeah, man. And you know, right now Virgil Ortiz versus Jerron Boots Ennis, that's on, you know, that's on tap next, I think. I think that, you know, both of those guys should be ready to fight, man. Straight up. You know, I really don't want to see any other fights. I feel like those fights right there should be enough. You know, but you know, I at 154 pounds, that's what it is, you guys. You know, I want to see, you know, I would love to see, you know, Jerron Boots or Jerron Boots or Virgil Ortiz fight Sebastian Fundora. You know, I think Sebastian Fundora, I think he matches up well with Virgil Ortiz, but for some odd reason, I think that, you know, Jerron Boots would have a better time with Sebastian Fundora than Virgil Ortiz would, just because he's a lot more elusive. Jerron Boots is, and you know, not only that, he can you know, he can learn, he can adapt, you know. But with the Karen fight, man, you know, that first fight was, you know, That first fight was tough, you know, and I don't think I don't think it maybe should have been that tough, but it was tough. You know, it was a lot tougher than, people would, people thought it was gonna be. Because I thought it was gonna be more of a, I thought that Jerome Ennis was gonna run through, through him, and he didn't. The first fight was, you know, some would say, a very, very close fight. And, some would say that, Jerome Ennis won that fight, hands down. And then you got some, I think more few than any, but you would say some say Karen won that fight, which that, listen, man. Some say that was a close fight, but I know right now, man, I want to see one of these guys fight the champions. Champion fight champion. I would love to see some type of unification going on at 154 pounds. Some type of unification. I mean, let's be honest. Right now, man, at 154 pounds, I want to see champion fight champion. I want to see Sebastian Fundora. I want to see him fight another champion because I think he can do it. I really do. I think he can do it. And right now, the 154-pound division is wide open. It's wide open. You got guys like, Xander, that's, the 154-pound champion. Dangerous as well. Young, can definitely fight off the front foot. I haven't seen a whole lot of, trickery off the back foot, but we know he can move forward and we know he can put the pressure on you and we know he can get out of certain situations, especially when he gets buzzed and stuff. So, but he's still younger. So we got to see how he develops, even as a champion. Yeah, man, and like I said, man, you got Bottom, excuse me if I'm butchering his name, the guy that beat Tim Tszyu. I mean, Bakram, I think he's good. Did I think he was gonna run through Tim Tszyu like that? No, I didn't. But it's not out of the realm of possibilities. It's not out of the realm of possibilities. Both guys, came in there to fight. Both guys, was not trying to take a loss. And we seen what happened. The best man did win. And now he's a champion. Now, Bakram is a champion. I would love to see who he's going to fight next. He is from Russia. And he's a freight train, dude. He's a freight train coming through. And some of these Russian fighters, man, they ain't to be fucked with. Look at Archer Beterbiev. Yeah, he did move to Canada, but look at Archer Beterbiev. Archer Beterbiev ran it the fuck up, until he fought Bivol, but he beat Bivol the first time. So, and Bivol had to get surgery to pull out of the trilogy. So, and like I told y'all in another video, Beterbiev might not hurt you, he might not knock you out in the first 2-3 rounds. But it's going to be an accumulation of punches where your body's just like no en masse. You know what I'm saying? I'm cooked. He's been hitting on my arm for 8, 9, 10 rounds. And just, at some point you just like, I can't even take them punches no more. That's what some of these fighters do, and that's what they exploit, in the ring. It shows that they wilt under pressure. And Bivol was definitely a soldier. He took on the challenge, and I think he won the second fight. But I think it should be a trilogy in that fight. We still don't know a distinctive winner. Yeah, Bivol might have won the rematch, but better be won the first fight. And so, right now, I would love to see them two fight, for a trilogy. But you know, that fight will happen, I think, eventually. But they'll, at that point, what better be what we have? He's already, knocking on. He's already, up there. He's already up there in age. So I think, but he treats his body right. He doesn't drink alcohol. He doesn't, smoke weed that I know of. And he's 40 years old, but he's, still a viable threat to any fighter at 175 pounds, including David Benavidez. Straight up. So, yeah, man. I wanted to know what you guys thought about these fights this weekend, man. Showbox had a card as well on Friday night. Watch some of that. Shout out to ProBox, excuse me. And I just think that they had I think they had a good show, man. They always put on, for the most part, good shows. I like, the way they just put it up, and almost reminds me of like a Friday Night Fights that ESPN used to do, which is dope because you get right close, really close to like, world title type fights. Maybe even they might even sneak in some world title fights. So it's one of them things. It's one of them things that you gotta understand that at this point in boxing with networks and there's still a lot of boxers right now. If you think about it, there's still a lot of boxers right now that's sitting on the bench, dude. That's just sitting right now. You got the Charlo brothers, you got Plant, you got Gary Russell's brothers and all of them. Like, you got a lot going on with fighters that's been sitting, man. A lot of these fighters been sitting, or they've been having to take a lot less money and be on the undercard. So, these network deals, man, they got to get it right, man, because right now, man, it's not looking good. It's not looking good for the sport of boxing because a lot of boxers are under contract with certain promoters and certain managers, and they can't even they can't fight right now because their promoter / manager is not even, doesn't even have a TV deal for them at the moment. So they can't even fight. And not only a deal hasn't been made. A deal hasn't been, half of these boxers are, they're on the shelf. I call it being on the shelf. Straight up. I call it being on the shelf just because of the simple fact, what's Top Rank doing with their fighters? Top Rank, when we going to see Keyshawn Davis again? When we going to see Xander again? When we going to see these people again, man? I mean, right now, in the sport of boxing, there's a lot of top boxers that are sitting and that want to be a lot more active than they are. And want to be a lot more active than they are. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section, man. But I'm about to head out, man. Thank you guys so much for watching. Corey Lee's Boxing tonight. And we're going to come back with another one next week, man. is coming up. You know, we got a bunch of big fights coming up. Um, and I can't wait to talk about them. I can't wait to break them down. But right now, man, Erickson Lubin take about 6 months off. Victor Ortiz, excuse me, Victor. I keep wanting to call him Victor. Virgil Ortiz, in my eyes, is better than Victor. Two different eras, I get it. But I don't know. I just think that Virgil Ortiz is a different type of guy. That's why I really want to see this Jerome Ennis fight. That's the fight I want to see, man. Straight up. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Please smash that like button and subscribe. And you guys, until next time.